Hello, I'm Henry Chop, your host. And you heard the newsboy crying extra. That means it's time for an extra newspaper from the World War II newspaper channel. This weekend, I decided to post something that kind of had to do with what I posted on the World War II radio channel last weekend. Last weekend, on Saturday, we played 12 hours of radio broadcasts from the 1920s. If you want to hear that, go over to the World War II radio channel and subscribe over there and click on that bell icon to get notifications of new programs. But I decided to pluck a random newspaper out of thin air and read you some radio out of there, a random newspaper from the 1920s. I chose Monday, June 27th, 1927. I decided I wanted to go with a summer month so we'd get the baseball scores. Babe Ruth was in the middle of his 60 home run season. Movies still did not have a voice, they were still silent. The world was at peace. The economy was good in the United States. You had flappers. Prohibition was in effect. Jazz music was in full swing. Not big band music, but in a sort of a bouncy jazz music was in effect in a big way. And Chicago was the home of a lot of gang violence. It was the era of Al Capone and Bugs Moran and their gang wars. So it was a very interesting era, and that's why I chose 1927 to spotlight this week on the World War II newspaper channel Extra, where they always say a newspaper is a snapshot of a day in history. So if you like content like this, click on that bell icon to get notifications and subscribe to this channel. Well, you know what? Without any further ado, let's read the newspaper. News as read from the Chicago Tribune for Monday, June 27th, 1927. Henry Chop reporting. The weather today. The sun rose at 5:16 a.m. It set at 8:29 p.m. For Chicago and vicinity, fair on Monday, Tuesday unsettled, probably showers or thunderstorms, warmer on Monday and Tuesday, followed by cooler late Tuesday or Tuesday night. Winds mostly moderate east to southeast Monday, becoming strong south to southwest on Tuesday. The low temperature, 56 degrees. The high temperature, 63. Today's headline, 13 killed in auto crashes. Speed combined with carelessness on the part of motorists and pedestrians caused automobile accidents that resulted in 13 deaths yesterday in Cook County, raising the toll since January 1st to 453. This is believed to have been the largest number of auto deaths ever recorded in a single day in Cook County. 5 of the victims were children struck down as they were playing in the streets. A youth and a girl returning with 3 companions from a tour of suburban roadhouses lost their lives when the car in which they were riding crashed at 60 miles an hour into a light pole. 1 woman was killed and 4 others were injured when their automobile was struck by a train on a grade crossing. The others were struck on streets or fatally injured in collisions. Of the 5 persons who composed a roadhouse party, only 2 escaped without serious injuries. The girl killed was Margaret Christina Johnson, also known as Peggy, age 17, 3632 Milwaukee Avenue. The youth who lost his life was Trygav Svensson, age 22, 3952 Montrose Avenue. Charles Lickamer, age 21, 4903 North Kedvale Avenue, suffered a fractured skull. The driver of the car, Joseph Zamp, 18, 2506 South Harding Avenue, was speeding his automobile east on Lawrence Avenue when at Ridgeway Avenue he lost control and the machine swerved into a post. The Johnson girl died almost immediately. Svensson lived less than an hour. Zamp, uninjured, fled the scene before his companions were picked up. A search for him was started, but he managed to evade the police all day and was still missing at midnight. The story of the wild ride was given by the second girl in the party. She is Marjorie Leonard, 184101 Belle Plain Avenue. Merely stunned in the accident, she was revived and taken to the Albany Park Police Station, where she told Captain Joseph Goldberg about it. It's all kind of dumb, she said. It just seems sort of goofy to think that those two are dead. It don't seem right somehow. She and Peggy, she continued, had gone to Riverview Park Saturday evening. There they met two of the three boys, Svensson and Zamp, and were invited for a ride. They accepted. Zamp stopped his car at a drugstore and picked up liquor. The five then drove to the Lone Tree Inn on Milwaukee Avenue. The boys had a little gin, Marjorie continued. They mixed some drinks. I didn't take any. Then it was getting late, so we started back. We stopped at a chop suey restaurant and had something to eat and went on again. We were moving fast and we started to pass a car. Then there was a smash and I don't remember anymore. Five women, wives of Spanish War veterans, were returning to their homes in Chicago from the state convention of the Spanish American veterans at Kankakee when the car in which they rode was struck by a Grand Trunk railroad train at the Torrance Avenue crossing in Lansing, Illinois, near the Indiana line. Mrs. Samuel Haven, 7819 Coles Avenue, was killed. The injured are Mrs. John J. Geary, 7830 Jeffrey Avenue, Mrs. Dell Hawkins, 7943 South Shore Drive, Mrs. William Purdy, 3064 East 79th Street, and Mrs. Dora Robinson, 7924 Avenue L. The injured were taken to St. Margaret's Hospital in Hammond. Mrs. Havens, according to friends, served as an Army nurse during the Spanish War, and the veterans are planning a military funeral for her. Gerald Lessie, 9 years old, 906 Reba Place, Evanston, was playing in the street near his home last night when he was struck by an automobile driven by Huber F. Rance, 2650 Albion Avenue. Rance took the lad to the St. Francis Hospital, where he died. The Evanston police charged the driver with manslaughter and released him on bonds of $10,000. Coral Massey, colored, 9 years old, died at the county hospital of injuries suffered when she was struck by a cab in front of her home at 1337 West 14th Street. Walter Kubareski, 1257 West 14th Street, the driver was not held. Frank Rose, colored, 5 years old, 3536 Wentworth Avenue, was struck in front of his home by a car driven by Emo Carlson, 2709 Lowell Avenue, and died a short while later at the Wesley Memorial Hospital. Lucy Kubik, 2 years old, 2328 West 15th Place, toddled off the sidewalk in front of her home into the path of a car that was being backed by Joseph Lesniak of 531 West 40th Street. She died 2 hours later at St. Anthony's Hospital. Alex Grossman, age 11, 2657 Cortez Street, died of injuries suffered on Saturday when he was struck by an automobile driven by Isidore Kearns of 1224 South Avers Avenue. Kearns was held. An automobile driven by John Hart of 4358 Drexel Boulevard, a national organizer for the American Legion, struck and fatally injured Albert Newman, 59, of 6956 Honore Street near 23rd Place and Canal Street. Newman died a short while later. Arthur Hain, age 40, 3143 West 39th Street, died of injuries when he was struck at 22nd and Levitt Streets by a car driven by an unidentified man. An unidentified youth, about 18 years old, was killed when he was struck at Mannheim Road and Lake Street by a car driven by H.H. Stoddard of 411 North Kyler Avenue, Oak Park. Stoddard was held in $10,000 bonds for an inquest. Steve Sellers, age 39, of 9129 Ellis Avenue, who was found unconscious at 93rd Street and Dobson Avenue, where he had apparently been struck by an automobile, died at the Burnside Hospital. Gunnar Feranazin, 24 years old, of 7530 Evans Avenue, died of injuries suffered when he was struck at 79th Street and Maryland Avenue by a car driven by Melvin Brosseau, 7123 Woodlawn Avenue. The driver was held. An automobile ran down Paul Chanik, 56 years old, 12314 Avenue G last night and inflicted injuries that might prove fatal to him. He was struck while crossing Ewing Avenue at 101st Street. Passerby took him to the South Chicago hospital. The police are seeking the driver out of the automobile who fled. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this channel, check out our companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. Over there, you will hear radio broadcasts of the newsmakers, the news reporters, and various entertainment programs, comedy, drama, horror, all kinds of fun stuff. And you will also get the #1 song every Friday that is represented on that channel as the radio programs correspond with the newspapers that you hear. Each upload premieres the same night the newspaper premieres that you are listening to right now. We even feature movie serials and classic movies on there when YouTube permits it. So swing over to the World War II Old Time Radio channel and click on that bell icon to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well and click on that bell icon. I know you'll enjoy them. And now for world news. Tokyo, June 27th. The Japanese government has instructed Admiral Baron Sato, its chief delegate to the three-power naval disarmament conference in Geneva, to advocate deferring discussion of capital ships until an agreement is reached on auxiliary craft. Geneva, June 26th. Admiral Jellicoe, Earl of Scapa and member of the British delegation as New Zealand's representative of the three-power naval limitation conference, today gave an exclusive interview to the Tribune correspondent. He summed up the week's work here, explained Great Britain's attitude on the points at issue, and outlined what the British consider would be the ideal results of the conference called by President Coolidge. The possibilities for the successful outcome of the conference are in direct proportion to the tact of the press in representing the situation, Earl Jellicoe said. To achieve the results, the conference must not be clouded in suspicion and distrust, but must work harmoniously toward the fulfillment of agreements. Regarding the deadlock reached over Great Britain's determination to bring up the question of further reducing the size of capital ships, aircraft carriers, and cruisers, the Admiral reflected the statement of Britain's chief delegate, Walter C. Bridgeman, First Lord of the Admiralty. He insists his instructions from London require him to discuss the question, while Ambassador Hugh Gibson stands pat with the statement that the Washington Convention embodies decisions on 3 points and specifically provides that at a later conference in 1931 or 1936, any of the signatory powers may propose revising the accords. The only way I see out of the difficulty is for the various delegations to refer them to their governments for decisions, Admiral Jellicoe said. Our delegation's mandate, as the British proposals indicate, provides for a discussion of these points. Admiral Jellicoe cleared up one point that heretofore was confusing in the capital ship problem. The British opinion is that a reduction in the size and gunpowder of giant dreadnoughts should be adopted at this conference, and no power should construct ships to offset the newest British battleships, Nelson and Rodney, of 35,000 tons and armed with 16-inch guns. At the Washington Conference, Japan insisted on completing the Matsu, a 34,000-ton battleship carrying 8 16-inch guns, as a sister ship to the Nagato, already finished, Admiral Jellicoe said. This decision enabled the United States to continue the 3 post-Jutland boats, the Colorado, Maryland, and West Virginia, and left Great Britain to add 2 more modern units to the battlecruiser Hood, which we did by building the Nelson and Rodney. Moscow, June 26th. A campaign is on foot throughout the Soviet Union for the promotion of military preparedness in the face of recent developments which are regarded as threats of war. The period from July 10th to July 17th has been designated as Defense Week, toward the success of which all efforts are being directed. Military sports are being advocated strongly as a means to awaken the enthusiasm of the youth of the country, and the heads of unions are exhorting their members to rally around Sovietchik, Russia's greatest volunteer martial organization. The latter is headed by Alexis Likov and War Commissioner Vereshilov, and its members are said to number in the millions. The organization is a combination of the old Aviakim with the Society for the Defense of the Union, which was devoted to the construction of airplanes, the development of chemical war preparation, and the production of gas masks. London, June 26th. All the royal pomp of pre-war London will be revived here in the next few weeks as the background for the long-heralded visits of 3 kings and 4 queens. King Alfonso of Spain, the first to arrive last night, was met at Victoria Station by King George, the Prince of Wales, and Prince Henry with a great show of cordiality. The next visitor will be Queen Victoria, the Spanish king's consort, then the King and Queen of Norway, and the Queen of the Belgians. The Queen of the Netherlands, accompanied by her daughter, Princess Juliana, will arrive the end of the season. Another picturesque visitor will be King Fuad of Egypt, who already is en route. He will be the guest of King George at Buckingham Palace. France, Russia, June 26th. 20 so-called Kyrgyz noblemen have been arrested and banished, and their property, including some 20,000 sheep, has been confiscated. The action was ordered by Soviet Republic authorities because of the former Tsarist affiliations of the so-called noblemen. The latter included 3 sons of Habdindatarov, who was decorated several times by the Tsar for assisting in the conquest of Central Asia, especially subduing the Kokand Khanate. Geneva, June 26th. The only official dinner during this week will be given by Walter C. Bridgeman, First Lord of the British Admiralty, and Dame Caroline Bridgeman, to representatives of the British Dominions and the chief American delegates. The guests will include Ambassador Hugh Gibson, Rear Admiral Hilary Jones, Mrs. Jones, Hugh Wilson, Minister to Byrne, and Mrs. Wilson, Earl Jellicoe, Sir Joseph Cook, High Commissioner for Australia, Mr. Smith of South Africa, Admiral Beale, Admiral Aubrey Smith, Captain Moore, Captain Egerton, Sir Eric Drummond, Secretary of the Sir Eric Drummond, Secretary General of the League of Nations. Sorry, they had the copy was flawed there. They had Secretary in there twice. Secretary General of the League of Nations and Lady Drummond, Dr. and Mrs. Riddle of Canada, and Mr. and Mrs. Michael McWhite of the Irish Free State. Captain Arthur J. Hepburn, United States Navy Intelligence Officer Mrs. Hepburn, and their cousin Miss Lowndes, daughter of the former governor of Maryland, dined with Mr. Dolbear of the American delegation. Lieutenant Commander and Mrs. Harold C. Train dined with Lady Frederick Field, wife of Vice Admiral Sir Frederick Field. Another party included Rear Admiral and Mrs. Hilary Jones, Ambassador Gibson, Mr. and Mrs. Salmon, and their daughter Barbara, and Admiral and Madam Sato. Syracuse, New York, June 26th. The story of how the inhabitants of a whole Chinese village committed suicide by drowning sooner than face the uncertainties of a future of misery was told here tonight by Secretary Wilbur of the Navy in a speech before the New York Christian Endeavor Conference, pointing out that the spirit of human brotherhood has increased in the Western world to the point that relief of the distressed was regarded as an obvious duty. He added, "I was told recently of the case where the inhabitants of a village in China were impoverished by a raid of bandits to such an extent that they saw no means of maintaining their food supply. They held a consultation as to what should be done, and after due consideration, they all decided to commit suicide, which was done by marching down into the river and drowning. It did not occur to them that anyone would come to their aid or be under obligation to do so. Mr. Wilbur contrasted with this the immediate spontaneous relief offered publicly in the Mississippi flood and other American emergencies under human brotherhood ethics engendered by Christian teaching. The sympathy felt for the farmer was another instance, the secretary said, of the duty felt to help others. Vladimir, White Russia. Nicholas Uletenkov, who claims to be 132 years old, has retired from work, saying 120 years of labor is enough. He recalls having fought in the Bersina River battle in 1812, where Napoleon narrowly escaped drowning. And now for national news. New York, June 26th. With Roosevelt Field a sea of mud following two terrific electric storms which poured their torrents onto the soft turf within 24 hours, weather experts today declared that Commander Byrd probably will be unable to take off on his transatlantic trip to Paris before Tuesday. Aside from the condition of the flying field, weather experts reported to Commander Byrd this evening that a row of thunderstorms crossing the coast states and New England in a northeasterly direction have reached a point directly on the proposed course of the America and effectually blocked any attempt at flying. Commander Byrd and his followers declared themselves disappointed at being unable to start. The leader of the expedition, however, clung to his previous statements that no flight would be attempted until the reports of the weathermen indicated that success was within reach. Since Colonel Lindbergh's return to the United States, Byrd said, "We have been awaiting the word of the United States Weather Bureau that the weather would be okay for our transatlantic flight. That word has never been given. When it is given, we will go, and we will not go until then. We can only get this word definitely a few hours prior to our departure. Naturally, we are very impatient to go. The weather tonight across the ocean was excellent, but the series of electric storms which fringed the Atlantic coast would have made flying a precarious business. Until a late hour this morning, it was thought that the flyers might make a getaway at dawn. Their plane had been completely provisioned and fueled, and mechanics worked ceaselessly to put the final touches to the engine, making certain that there would be no unnecessary delay. When Commander Byrd looked the field over this morning, he decided that the heavily laden America would not be able to make a successful start from slippery Roosevelt Field, which in places was submerged under several inches of water. There were many number of mud holes which the airship might strike at, which would slow up the plane. It was a sad blow to the flyers. Early in the morning, Byrd Acosta had kissed his wife goodbye, and when he reached the field, he marched up and down declaring that a takeoff was possible. He was supported in his opinion by the mechanic Belchin. Commander Byrd was dubious. Finally, he asked about the wind. He was informed that there was a crosswind of 12 miles an hour. Regretfully, he told his followers that the flight would be postponed, possibly until Thursday. Washington, D.C., June 26th. Pacifist opposition to the War Department plan of annually testing the preparedness of the nation by holding a defense test day during which the citizen army of the nation is mobilized for inspection has apparently been successful. Twice, once in 1924 and again in 1925, defense tests were held despite the opposition of organizations such as the National Council for the Prevention of War, but last year the plans for a third test were abandoned. This year, the holding of a defense test has not even been discussed seriously, and the War Department officials say that no test will be held. The American Legion has always been in favor of such tests and would like to hold them annually. The War Department has consistently held that they are necessary if the fullest efficiency of the nation's defense forces is to be assured, and General John J. Pershing, shortly before his retirement, expressed the hope that tests would be held annually. In 1924 and again in 1925, War Department officials asserted the tests were being held to comply with the provisions of the National Defense Act of 1920. The first test was unusually successful. The second was held on the 4th of July after President Coolidge had held that congressional authority was needed if the exercises were to be held on any other occasion than a national holiday. They were not so successful due partly to the fact that they were held on a holiday. Last year, the question of holding a test was dismissed, but no congressional authorization was sought. San Francisco, California, June 26th. Army, naval, and civilian aviators moved swiftly today preparing for the aerial conquest of the Pacific between San Francisco and Honolulu. Ernie Smith, the airmail flyer who seeks to be first to take off in the 2,400-mile flight, worked throughout Saturday night to have his plane on the ground at the Oakland Municipal Airport today. The Army plane, a giant tri-motored Fokker, was expected to fly from Crissy Field to the Oakland Airport today, but failed to do so. At Honolulu, surrounded by the secrecy afforded by Pearl Harbor Naval Station, Richard Grace, a California aviator, is preparing to carry the colors of his naval friend across the 2,400-mile expanse. A series of contradictory rumors filtered through the censorship at Pearl Harbor as to the probable time of Grace's takeoff. Notwithstanding denials from the Army that its flight to Honolulu was in any way competitive, the public today saw preparations for the flight as a race among the Army, a civil flyer who was trained in the airmail service, and Grace, who is being aided by naval aviators at Honolulu. Tucson, Arizona, June 26th. Jose Gandero, said to be a painter of El Paso, was arrested here today and arraigned before the United States Commissioner Edwin F. Jones on charges of violating the neutrality laws. Gandero is alleged to have organized on May 15th an armed invasion of Mexico, and that on June 10th and 17th he equipped his expedition with arms and ammunition. Border Patrol officers working in conjunction with the Department of Justice unearthed a cache of arms, ammunition, and other supplies, which it is said belonged to Gandero and his party. Gandero is being held under $5,000 bond. Rapid City, South Dakota, June 26th. President Coolidge returned to the Hermosa Congregational Church, worshiping a second time in this tiny structure and hearing Rolf Leum, 20-year-old student pastor, preach another sermon delivered perhaps a bit more confidently than the first of his career last Sunday. Mr. and Mrs. Coolidge listened attentively with the other folks of the countryside who crowded the church to the limit or stood outside to hear the plea of Leum to accept Jesus Christ as the ideal of life. Washington, D.C., June 26th. Both major political parties were warned today by the Anti-Saloon League that, under the league's guidance, the drives in both parties will be organized to demand the nomination of satisfactory candidates for president and Congress on the state and local tickets in the 1928 campaign. The proclamation of the league, issued by its general counsel, Rain B. Wheeler, asserts that the Anti-Saloon League will use its well-established and successful methods in the coming political campaign, and frankly admits that the league will advise voters to scratch their own party ticket if it is headed by a wet and vote for the dry candidate of the opposition party. If we fail in one party, the statement said, we shall ask the voters of that party, except in states where the law prevents, to scratch the ticket and vote for the opposite candidate. The statement warns that if both Republican and Democratic parties should nominate wet candidates or adopt wet platforms, we will meet the situation and demonstrate to such candidates or to the party with a wet platform that there is a punishment after death. Washington, D.C., June 26th. Substantial increases in revenue from taxes on individual and corporation earnings for the calendar year of 1925, in spite of rate reductions and new exemptions allowed in the 1926 Revenue Act, under which the returns were filed, are reported in statistics of income made by the Bureau of Internal Revenue today. The analysis shows that although as a result of increased personal exemptions granted in the 1926 Act, both the number of individual returns and the total net income reported were greatly reduced. There was an increase of $30,289,793, or 4.3% in the total tax assessed. The number of returns filed was 4,171,051. The aggregate net income reported was $21,894,576,403, and the net tax was $734,555,183. Pine Bluff, Arkansas, June 26th. 3,000 Negroes of Southeast Arkansas this afternoon entertained Herbert C. Hoover, Secretary of Commerce. Besides the large Negro audience, about 1,000 white persons attended the meeting. The meeting was arranged by Negro leaders of Pine Bluff, Little Rock, and towns of Southeast Arkansas to express to Mr. Hoover the appreciation of the Negroes of the flood section of Arkansas for his work in behalf of the flood sufferers of their race. A large silver loving cup was presented to Mr. Hoover. Jacksonville, Florida, June 26th. 4 sisters were drowned today in Clearwater Lake near here when the boat in which they were riding was overturned. The dead are Mrs. Frances Norton, 18, Mary Silcox, 14, Dora Silcox, 12, and Emma Silcox, 10. Hey guys, if you enjoy this channel, check out our companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. Over there, you will hear radio broadcasts of the newsmakers, the news reporters, and various entertainment programs, comedy, drama, horror, all kinds of fun stuff. And you will also get the #1 song every Friday that is represented on that channel as the radio programs correspond with the newspapers that you hear. Each upload premieres the same night the newspaper premieres that you are listening to right now. We even feature movie serials and classic movies on there when YouTube permits it. So swing over to the World War II Old Time Radio channel and click on that bell icon to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well and click on that bell icon. I know you'll enjoy them. And now back to local and regional news. Weak in body and manifestly suffering from a succession of recent ailments, Major General Leonard Wood, Governor General of the Philippines, exhibited vigor and firmness yesterday in Chicago as he expressed his unalterable determination that independence for the Philippines now would mean economic and political disaster for the insular area. General Wood is back in America for the first time in 6 years, having remained in the islands since taking the office of Governor General in 1921. His arrival in Chicago recalled that it was just 29 years ago that the Rough Riders Regiment, of which he was colonel, and the late President Roosevelt was lieutenant colonel, were first fired on by the enemy at Las Guasimas, Cuba, in the Spanish-American War. That engagement occurred on June 24, 1898. On July 1st, the Rough Riders fought at El Caney in the Battle of San Juan Hill. On July 8th, the then Colonel Wood was made a brigadier general and Lieutenant Colonel Roosevelt a colonel for bravery in action. The Governor General arrived here early yesterday morning to remain until 11:30 o'clock today and passed the whole of the time in his suite at the Blackstone. Despite his physical condition, which appears to have a depressing effect on General Wood, though he said that the cooler weather of the last few days had done him a world of good, he discussed broadly the affairs of the Philippines during a brief interview at noon. His emphasis on the needs of the Filipinos, as he sees them, indicated a sort of impatience toward the views of the inexperienced. The economic future of the Philippines depends on free trade between the islands and America, General Wood asserted. and the gradual development of the island commerce, the past year shows a balance of trade in favor of the insular community. If the Philippines should now achieve independence and the trade advantages be drawn, the whole economic structure of the islands would be destroyed. I'm speaking of the result as I see it, as viewed at this time. The future undoubtedly will alter conditions as progress, enlightenment, and individual diligence and application advance. Judging from the progress which has been made in the last quarter of a century, it is possible to envision a time when the islanders may successfully carry on as an independent nation. General Wood arrived in Chicago on the train which brought him from Rapid City, South Dakota, following his conference with President Coolidge. Although he permitted slight assistance in leaving the steps of the car at the station, as soon as he found his feet solidly on ground, he started briskly to walk the length of the train shed to the waiting automobile. With him were Mrs. Wood, Major Burton Reed, his aide, Major Lindsay Fletcher, his medical advisor, and two Filipino men servants. The party went immediately to the Blackstone and were installed in a suite on the 11th floor. Miss Margaret A. Haley, business representative of the Chicago Teachers Federation, and Samuel A. Edelson, Corporation Counsel, strode into the limelight yesterday as interim generalissimos of the mighty Class Shed Arms, which is to be resumed this afternoon over the Chicago finance bills in the legislature at Springfield. Miss Haley and Mr. Edelson labored overtime, making bullets to be fired on the floor of the House today, tomorrow, and the next day. They have collected and molded a large amount of ammunition, which both will cart to Springfield this morning, ready for a renewal of legislative fight over the Thompson finance bills and the proposed change in the school building fund. Mr. Edelson hopes to break the deadlock. Miss Haley desires to continue it. Mr. Edelson says his revenue plan will not increase taxes. Miss Haley says it will. Mr. Edelson says his plan is beneficial to the school building fund. Miss Haley says Edelson's plan is an attempted raid on the school fund. Mr. Edelson says his bills are as plain as daylight. Miss Haley says they contain a joker of major importance. The indirect and perhaps the direct influence of the union employees on both surface and elevated lines is expected to be used this week for the company's 5 transportation bills at Springfield. The threatened calling of a strike authorized by the surface lines employees by a vote of 11,951 to 161, and by the elevated employees with only 31 dissenting votes, is said to have had some impression upon certain legislatures who cater to union labor votes. One Chicago member of the House who now stands to vote against the 5 transit bills, but who, because of his constituency, may be forced to vote for them and consequently desired his name not be disclosed, said yesterday that he had encountered the influence of union labor. He asserted that the activity is so strong that he suspected that the companies have hinted to their men that such pressure would be advantageous to them. Bullets and fists flew and an axe was wielded in a battle that raged last night around a gasoline station at 67th Street and Eberhart Avenue and took on the proportions of a near riot before the Woodlawn police arrived. The fight started when 6 young men, for some unknown reason, set upon Charles DeBoard, attendant at the gas station. DeBoard, after being slugged, ran into the station and grabbed a revolver, which he started to fire. One of the sextet seized an axe and swung it viciously at DeBoard. By this time, a crowd had gathered and joined in the battle. When the police arrived, the 6 who had started the fight leaped into 2 machines in which they had come and sped away. Police commandeered cars and captured them 5 blocks from the scene. At the Woodlawn station, they said they were William Keenan, 6912 Michigan Avenue, Thomas Burke, 6852 Calumet Avenue, Emmett and Arthur Dueller, 6977 Anthony Avenue, and Frank Cronin, 7019 Indiana Avenue, and Jerry Flagger, 1629 East 77th Street. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, June 26th. Good beer at a reasonable price has become so plentiful in Milwaukee that roadhouse keepers have found the competition too keen at prevailing rates. The result is a fake Canadian ale, which, when beautifully labeled, will bring $1 a bottle from the thirsty who cannot distinguish between it and the common or garden variety dispensed at 20 cents. Federal dry agents last night raided the roadhouse of Frank Klein and discovered the brewery together with the machine which affixes the fancy stickers to increase the price of the product more than 400%. The Sarnia Brewing Company Limited of Sarnia, the Sarnia Brewing Company Limited of Sarnia, Ontario, suffered forgery of its label to elevate the standing of the home brew. A 500-gallon vat and 1,700 bottles of the glorified brew were destroyed. Klein and a waiter, C. George, were arrested. Fox Lake, Wisconsin, June 26th. Police who have been dragging the lake here since Friday for the bodies of 2 Wisconsin girls and a Chicago man who were drowned when their boat capsized off Elmwood Island today recovered the body of Erwin Jebszewski, 32, of 3551 North Whipple Street, Chicago. The bodies of the 2 girls, one of whom was the daughter of the late Judge William Lukey of Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, have not been recovered. An armed youth early this morning walked into the Triangle restaurant at 330 South State Street, pointed a pistol at Miss Betty Cook, the cashier, then walked behind the counter and took $1,000 from a safe, working so casually that neither 30 patrons who were eating nor the 3 waitresses who served them discovered the holdup was in progress. The youth walked in, leaned over the cigar case, and pointing the gun, said in a low voice, "If you make a move, young lady, I'll kill you." Then he walked around behind the counter and took the money from the safe, all the while keeping Miss Cook covered. As he walked out, he again cautioned Miss Cook to be quiet until he got away, saying that he would shoot her even if I have to shoot through the plate glass window if she made any outcry. Police took Miss Cook to the Bureau of Identification to show her pictures of well-known stick-up men in an effort to have her identify the youth. Miss Ann G. Allen, age 28, of 1132 Lawrence Avenue, demanded as a matter of principle that she be arrested Saturday evening. When a policeman accommodated her and took her to the Central Station, she changed her mind and asked to be released. But the police refused to grant her the feminine privilege of changing it that often, and she will be put in a cell. Sergeant John Howe and Frank Patch of 1807 Throop Street, whom he had arrested as an alleged moron, were battling at Madison Street and Michigan Avenue when the woman approached. Patch had one of Howe's thumbs in his teeth and was trying to gnaw it off. Howe was trying to save the thumb. Miss Allen informed the sergeant he was a brute. He told her to go away and let him get his thumb back. She defied him and announced that she demanded to be arrested, so Howe let her go to the station with him and Patch. There she learned the nature of the charge against the prisoner and stated that Howe was doing just the right thing in hitting him. She turned to go, but the police insisted a request was a request. She will be arraigned for disorderly conduct today. Screaming women and shouting men numbering several hundred early last evening formed a mob and for a time threatened West Park motorcycle policeman John Lichter after he had knocked down Mrs. Sadie Copps, age 30, of 4120 Roosevelt Road at Roosevelt Road and Independence Boulevard while chasing a speeder. Mrs. Copps' coat caught in the machine, and as the policeman drove by, she fell and was dragged for several feet. Thinking she might be seriously hurt, the policeman picked her up and carried her to a physician's office, which he found closed. When he got back into the street, the crowd had gathered. Women cried, "Get him," and "Kill him," and several men struck at the policeman. When Fillmore Avenue police arrived to rescue him, they found Lichter backed against a building, holding off the crowd with his revolver. Lichter's superiors absolved him of any blame. When William Sherman, age 30, of 674 West 63rd Street, ran away from a yellow cab he had attempted to steal, being chased by William Finkelstein, its driver, he made the error of leaping over a fence into the backyard of J.F. Stacy at 4723 Lake Park Avenue, where Stacy's police dog held forth. Sherman had to be taken to the Chicago General Hospital to have the bites dressed before the police could lock him up at the Hyde Park station. Identified by two men as robbers, Miss Mary Cusick, 24, 319 West North Avenue, and George Lantry, 3535 South Park Way, were held last night by the Hudson Avenue Police and will be arraigned in court today. Lantry was carrying a concealed pistol when the police halted them at Larrabee Street and North Avenue. Carlo Melito, 2014 North Kedzie Avenue, and Joseph R. Curry, 1528 Cleveland Avenue, the victims, ran to the police after the pair had tried to take their money. Henry J. the Midget Fernecky's accused slayer, who was saved from the gallows by a state Supreme Court reversal, is scheduled to face a murder jury for the second time in criminal court today. Chief Justice William J. Lindsay was forced to continue the hearing of the Fernecky's case until now because of the trials of Albert Anselmi and John Scalise, Genna gangsters. Galesburg, Illinois, June 26th. A pilotless airplane carrying a woman passenger hopped over 200 yards on the Lincoln Park flying field here today before it crashed into a barbed wire fence and smashed its propeller on a parked automobile. Ned Hatch, the pilot and owner, had seated the woman passenger and then twisted the propeller. Then, as he was about to assist other passengers to the plane, it sped away. Joseph Beck, age 56, of 1416 Willow Street, was in custody yesterday under suspicion of having robbed the Poor Fund box at St. Leo Church, 78th and Emerald Avenue. The Reverend Father Peter Shoebridge, pastor of the church, detained Beck until arrival of Detective Sergeants McCutcheon and Fleming of Gresham Police after finding a crochet hoop covered with glue in Beck's possession as the man knelt in the church as if in prayer. According to police, coins sticky with glue were found in Beck's pocket, the theory being that Beck used the hoop to fish the money out of the Poor Fund box. Beck denied the charge. Sarajevo, Yugoslavia, June 26th. Edgar D. Aldrich, an American newspaperman of Bloomington, Illinois, and his wife Ellen were killed this afternoon 7 miles from here when their automobile crashed over a precipice. Mr. and Mrs. Aldrich left Belgrade at 9 o'clock this morning for Sarajevo, and the accident occurred late this afternoon. Mr. Aldrich was pinned under the car and killed almost instantly. His wife died 2 hours later. Their chauffeur is expected to die. Mr. Aldrich was born in Bloomington, Illinois. He and his wife left America 10 months ago on a tour of the world. After a visit to China and India, they were doing the Balkans. The War Show, which closed last night after a 3-day exhibition in Grant Park, was declared a success, both from the spectacular and the financial standpoints by Army officers. Last night's crowd was one of the largest since the show opened. There were no accidents in the 3 days. Sham battles, daring horsemanship, and aviation stunts were the most popular features of the exhibition. Despite the success of the show, the officers said it was doubtful that it would be repeated next year. They referred to the gathering of the personnel and equipment as extremely difficult. Chicago's death rate from tuberculosis during the last 26 years has been cut down from 173.9 to 83 per 100,000, Health Commissioner Herman N. Bundesen stated in his weekly bulletin yesterday. The bulletin reveals other facts concerning the white plague, including that more males than females succumb to it, that the death rate among Negroes is 3 times as high as among whites, that marked declines in tuberculosis mortality in the last 12 years have been among those up to 11 years old and those from 20 to 60, and that the largest number of deaths from the disease among children come in April. Hey guys, if you enjoy this channel, check out our companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. Over there, you will hear radio broadcasts of the newsmakers, the news reporters, and various entertainment programs, comedy, drama, horror, all kinds of fun stuff. And you will also get the number one song every Friday that is represented on that channel as the radio programs correspond with the newspapers that you hear. Each upload premieres the same night the newspaper premieres that you are listening to right now. We even feature movie serials and classic movies on there when YouTube permits it. So swing over to the World War II Old Time Radio channel and click on that bell icon to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well and click on that bell icon. I know you'll enjoy them. And in sports, Wild Bill Barrett, the snare-voiced optimist from the banks of the Charles River, put something of his rollicking nature into his baseball bat yesterday afternoon, as a result, the Sox were able to win the final with the Detroit Tigers 9-7. Bill had been newly cast in the role of cleanup hitter in a batting order shakeup and twice did cheerful business in the face of most dismal gloom. His single in the fifth for a time brought sunshine to depressed souls among the customers because it tied the score. And then, after the Detroiters had gained a 4-run lead, the raucous Irishman socked the triple with the bases loaded as the special feature of an exhilarating 6-run rally in the 7th inning. The victory was a great surprise to most of the 25,000 fans on hand because the Tigers had tortured Tommy Thomas to the point where he was forced to retire in a 6th-inning whirlwind. In the meantime, the Sox appeared in a panic, and the generous raspberry showers given them at intervals by the bugs in the stands didn't seem to be helping them. Comiskey staff psychologist consulted last night and figured and hoped that the surprise triumph might cause the boys to snap into their tasks and win a few more encounters. They'll have a chance today in a doubleheader against Cleveland, the first 2 games of 5 to be played in 3 days. The battle started with a 2-base muff by Ward, but the Sox managed to get out with a 0-inning defensively and put over a counter for themselves. Metzler opened the home first with a single, stole second while Peck was striking out, and went the third on the first of Bibb Falk's 3 hits. Barrett then drew a pass to fill the bases, and Metzler got in on Sheely's sacrifice fly. McGurty walked to fill the bases again, but Cam ended it with a fly to Fothergill. The doings of the first inning apparently frightened the Tigers, for in their second, they picked on our Tommy for something terrible. Fothergill singled and Heilman dropped one in front of Barrett for a double, Fothergill stopping at third. The Tiger left fielder scored after Blue's long fly. Travener dropped a single in right, which put Heilman across and enabled him to take second on the throw. Rassler also singled, scoring Travener. Tommy steadied a bit, and then Whitehill and Warner sent out easy flies. The score was tied 3-3 by the Sox in the fifth after 2 were out. Peck walked and came in on Falk's double, and Bibb tallied on Barrett's single. The Tiger sixth was pretty disheartening. Gehringer led with a single, and Manouche drove out a long fly to right center, and both Metzler and Barrett made beautiful runs for it. Metzler got the ball but lost it when he collided with Barrett, Gehringer scoring, and Heine reaching second. Fothergill laid one safe, and Manouche got in while Heilman hit safely to right. Connolly came in to pitch at this juncture and hit Blue with the first ball pitched. Fothergill scored on Travener's sacrifice fly. Heilman took third and Blue second on a pass ball. Ward got Heilman at the plate on Basler's grounder, and Blue was out on an attempted double steal trying to get back to third. With the score 6-3, the Tigers added one in the seventh and two singles and a fielder's choice, causing the Sox to go into the seventh trailing by 4 runs. Metzler was hit by a pitched ball and Peck walked. Falk's hot one got past Blue for an error, filling the bases. Then Barrett tripled along the right foul line. Sheely put Bill across with a single, and after Krause had bunted, Stoner threw the ball far into right field, enabling Sheely to score from first and Buck to reach second. Krause went to third on Cam's infield out and was squeezed in with the 6th run of the session by Ward. Cincinnati, Ohio, June 26th. An undefinable something grips the haughty Cubs and puts them on the bum when they reach the Rhineland. Today, the indefinable something struck them in 2 places. First, in the vicinity of the mound, where Sheriff Blake was endeavoring to turn a bit of honest labor, and then at short, where an obscure pebble precipitated an unexpected hop and brought on an 8th-inning rally that counted 3 Redlegs and whipped the Cubs in the opener of the series. The count was 8-5 at the finish, making 5 out of 11 the Chicagoans have tossed up to the team that other members of the league family use as a doormat. Blake was an off-color workman because of his control. In the first half of the struggle, he had only a vague idea as to the exact location of the plate, and he either committed costly walks or pitched himself into holes that forced him to throw cripples, and the latter was smacked lustily by the homebreds. Due to these things, the Reds were able to pile up a 5-1 advantage in 5 chapters, and it looked as good as settled, but the Cubs put on a big blast in the 6th and tied it, only to drop by the wayside when the unidentified pebble did its bit. The swarthy gentleman from Cuba, Adolfo Luque, handled Cincinnati's pitching assignment to the exclusion of all other members of the staff. If his engagement had been purely a matter of combating the Cubs, he would have slipped through easily, but his job was complicated by the tendency of his mates to live up to their tail-end reputation. They gave the ball 5 pegs or boots that were not according to our best major league procedure, and some of these were converted into Cub dividends. One error let a Chicagoan cross the pan in the first frame, and if it hadn't been for 2 other slips in the 6th, the visitors would never have been able to shove themselves back into the game with their 4-run rally. Adams opened the game with a single and continued to third when Zitzman neglected to stop the ball as it bounced past. This miscue caused 9,500 customers to groan as though they thought it was going to be just another one of those things for which the Reds have recently grown unenviably famous. Adams scored when Webb whacked the fly to center. This slim lead lasted only the 2nd inning when Burke started his campaign of giving until it hurt. Brasler led off with a pass, went to third on Hargrave's hit, and home on a sacrifice fly by Kritz. President William L. Veeck of the Cubs today announced that the next home series at Wrigley Field would be a 3-game program with the world's champion St. Louis Cardinals starting next Friday. The date was originally open, but will be utilized to clear off a postponement from May 24th. Tickets for the games went on sale this morning. The July 4th games between the Cubs and Cincinnati Reds will start at 10:30 a.m. and 3 p.m., Veeck stated. New York, June 26th. The Athletics split a doubleheader with the Yankees today before 61,000 fans. Philadelphia triumphed in the opener 4-2 and dropped the second game 7-3. Gehrig hit his 22nd home run of the season off Pate in the 7th inning of the second game. Babe Ruth did not play either game. Washington, D.C., June 26th. The Washington Griffs made it 3 straight over the Boston Red Sox today, 8-7. Cleveland, Ohio, June 26th. Cleveland and the St. Louis Browns split a doubleheader today. The Indians won the first 2-0 and St. Louis the second 7-3. St. Louis, Missouri, June 26th. The Pittsburgh Pirates waged a fierce batting attack against the best of St. Louis pitchers and took the series opener from the Cardinals 9-3 here today. The Pirates' victory strengthened their hold on first place by 1.5 games over the Cardinals. Haynes was unable to stop the league leaders who bunched hits in 2 innings. Brooklyn, New York, June 26th. The Brooklyn Robins turned back the Giants 7-1 today. Dazzy Vance yielding only 6 hits, 2 of which were bunched in the ninth for New York's lone scorer. Benton, the Giants' starting pitcher, was wild and gave way to Songer after 4 innings. And here are the Major League standings. They do not give games behind in the standings. They only give 1-loss record, so you'll have to calculate that on your own. In the American League, the New York Yankees are in first place. Murderers Row, 45-20, 45 wins, 20 losses. The Philadelphia Athletics have won 38 and lost 28. The Chicago White Sox have won 36 and lost 30. The Washington Griffs, named after their owner Clark Griffith, have won 33 and lost 29. The Detroit Tigers have won 29 and lost 30. The Cleveland Indians have won 29 and lost 34. The St. Louis Browns have won 27 and lost 33. And the Boston Red Sox are tailing Charlie in this one. They have won 15 and lost 47. Over in the National League, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates, as stated before. They are in first place. They have won 38 and lost 22. The St. Louis Cardinals have won 37 and lost 24. The Cubs are in third place. The Chicago Cubs, 37 and lost 26. The New York Giants are in fourth place, winning 32 and losing 30. The Brooklyn Robins have won 31 and lost 34. The Boston Braves, 23 and 32. The Philadelphia Phillies, 23 and 36. And the Cincinnati Reds, 24 and 41. And let's see what is playing at the downtown Chicago Loop movie theaters. At the Chicago Theater at Randolph at State Street, it's the World's Wonder Theater. We have a double feature. Everybody said he was a hobo, but the sweetest girl in the world knew he was a hero. It's Richard Dix with Mary Bryan and other favorites in a two-fisted romantic comedy, Manpower. And H. Leopold Spittone's orchestra featuring a Southern Fantasy and Old Heidelberg with Roy Cooper of Student Prince fame, large ensemble, and tuneful stage event. And at the Oriental, Randolph, near State Street, we have Paul Ash and his Merry Mad musical gang in Jazz Fireworks, a cracking, sizzling frolic of pep, exploding with jazz and joy, with Milton Watson, Strood Twins, Steele and Winslow, Scotty McDonald, Paul Small, Bill Myers, Tony Hill's Abbott Dancers, and 50 others. That's the stage show. And on one screen, Paramount Junior stars in a gray romantic film, James Hall, Louise Brooks, in Rolled Stockings. And at the State Lake, always 70 degrees cool, it features Orpheum Circuit Vaudeville exclusive feature photoplays, 11 a.m. continuous to 11 p.m. Real popular prices, a swinging, dancing, laughing, delightful vaudeville bill. Ida Mae Chadwick and her 6 dizzy blondes, Bernie Riano and company in The Love School, Sanderson's Review, a syncopated novelty, Deso Redder, who wrestles with himself. Okay. And other great features. And the photoplay Laugh Feast, Louise Fanzetta and Clyde Cook, the funniest team in the movies in Simple Sis, a screaming feature photo play with 1,000 laughs in every reel. And at the Roosevelt State Street near Washington Street, in its third big week, the whole town is talking about this wonder thriller. Have you seen it? It's Chang, a Paramount picture. And at the Randolph Theater, State and Randolph Streets, last 5 days for women only. The Naked Truth, the movie that was banned in Boston. And at the McVickers, done in such a manner as to make you thrill over the greatest love of all, it's Beau Geste with Ronald Colman. You'll enjoy Beau Geste more if you see it from the beginning. It starts at 9:40, 11:35, at 1:50, 3:55, 6, 8:05, and 10:10 p.m. And that is news. Henry Chop reporting, as read from the Chicago Tribune for Monday, June 27th, 1927. Have a swell day, and God bless.